Design is not a hardcore skill or a soft skill, it's a human skill. Can you change people's quality of life? You just have to immerse yourself in all these challenges. That's the only way to do it. Every day is like a war to me. Just like, oh, you have credit card fraud. Oh, you forgot to
Mm-hmm.
pay your student dorm rent. Oh, you have health problems. So for me, these are all ambiguity. And how do we embrace that? The funny thing is that you can actually learn a lot of things from the people you cannot resonate with. Things go wrong, it's okay to go wrong, and it should be go wrong sometimes. Yeah. I still want to swim into this and to understand how can I survive and like propel, not just stay there of panic.
Hey everyone, this is Love and Philosophy, a podcast that started as my research where I'm trying to find patterns across disciplines and talk about things like feeling and consciousness and mind and cognition in ways that don't have to fit into traditional particular boxes and categories and yet are earnest and coming from a real place of trying to understand ourselves and the world. And my name is Andrea Hyatt, in case you're wondering how to say my name. Someone wrote and asked me. It's Hyatt. And today, the guest is Sheng-Hung Lee. He's a designer, an engineer, an educator. He's at MIT. As you'll hear, he has inspirations from many domains, from first becoming an electrical engineer to then working as an industrial designer in some of the best design consultancy firms in the world, like IDEO, maybe you've heard of it. And now he's in the Age Lab at MIT working on ideas of longevity and teaching and getting his PhD. I always like people who go back to school after having worked and been successful because I find this just really inspiring, and it's something I did in my own life, so I know how hard it can be, but also how rewarding. And I found Sheng-Hung Lee because he does these little inspiring quotes. He has like 1 million LinkedIn followers, and he has these wonderful little quotes he does about what design really means in our lives, and really thinking of design as decoding signals. So like de-signing, design, de-signing. It's very interesting to me. How do we decode the signals of our life, and how do we arrange those signals in different ways so as to have different feelings and experiences in the world? We talk about some of these things, but also in a more everyday, practical sense, just how some of these design concepts can kind of help you pick up a situation and turn it around and look at it from different angles. For example, one incident in his own life as a foreign student in the United States trying to kind of make his way, and he had to have a credit card, of course, and then there's this fraud thing that happens. We all know this situation and he really wanted to understand it, like what had happened and who had taken his credit card. And so he went to the bank to try to figure this out, but that was not an easy or stress-free process. But in any case, he brought some design principles to this situation, and as you'll hear, it really actually improved that situation and his day and the way he was feeling and so on. So it's interesting to think of all these different levels of what we do in our life, whatever you're doing in your life, and how you're learning things that you could probably apply in other areas of your life, or other people could learn from you, which would help them. And Sheng-Hung Lee tells me a little bit about what human-centered design means and life-centered design, and these are interesting concepts to me, perspectives opening up in the design world. And he talks about one of the projects he did for the Shanghai library, a big project, obviously, where he sort of redesigned the whole entryway. And this was basically a matter of thinking differently about the paths that each person took as they came into that building or left that building. So that's incredibly fascinating for me as I work on this idea of navigability and waymaking, and just how the ways that we move and the paths that we take affect what we think of as consciousness and cognition, and the practical aspects of that in everyday design and the way that we experience buildings and place and space and nature, and how all these are nested together. Everything's designed, or it's being designed on some level, and then on another level, nothing is really fully designed by anyone or anything. So there's always this chaos, co-creation, entropy, order, Paradox, the word always have to bring up in every conversation. How do we hold it? That's what we talk about here, of course, in one way or another. How does it relate to societal issues and very real problems that we face or experiences that we have? In any case, this is a really beautiful conversation. We just let it go where it wants to go and try to talk about what we care about. And it ends up with a real emphasis on human connection and design as a way to help us feel that connection and open to it. So that's one of my favorite sort of places to get to. The philosophical question that was on my mind when I was having this conversation is how to rethink this boundary that I sort of had in my mind about the way we design our lives, what's around us, even our appearance, and the way we feel and the way we think and the way we interrelate with one another. These seem like separate categories or something, but of course they're all mixed up and entangled. Or are they? What do you think? In any case, I hope you're doing well wherever you are out there today. If you want to support Love and Philosophy, you can do it in a million different ways, just however you would like. Join the Substack, that would be great, or anything you find would be helpful. It's always good to feel your support, and I really appreciate that you're here, so thank you. Here's our conversation today. Let me know what you think. So I guess we can begin formally now. So,
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. It's really lovely to have you on Love and Philosophy.
Thanks for inviting me. Very exciting.
You always have such cool glasses, by the way.
Yeah, I have 20 pairs. I mean,
20.
yeah, 20
Are
pairs.
they prescription? I didn't mean to start like this, but actually I love your glasses. It's really like a cool design element that makes you very noticeable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every time I travel, I gather different pairs of glasses, and I mainly gather frame is prescriptive, and depends on the mood. If I really like hard working day, I'll be all black. If
Mm.
it's for fun, for show, or colorful, sometimes matches my shoes.
Oh, how I'm so glad I asked you about that. That's really cool. So you kind of wake up and think, which pair of glasses am I feeling like wearing today sometimes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, like if it's really like no presentation, no meeting, I just wear black or transparent.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Very cool. I like the idea of it. So you're a like famous designer. You worked for all these famous design places that maybe nobody's gonna really have heard of, and maybe people have heard of. I don't really know because this audience is so broad. So I thought to start, we'll get into you and your life, but design is such an important word. We all encounter it all the time. Not the word, but design itself, the action, the process, whether it's been completed or being done to us, even. But I don't think any of us really think about that word in daily life unless we're designers like you. But how would you introduce this word to us, design? Maybe just from your perspective. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I design is like, yeah, it's pretty broad, but for me, one way to look at it, we can decompose the word, right? Like design can
Mm,
think about decoding signal.
mm,
Decoding signal means like we receive so many different types of signals every day, and how do we decode this like signal? Also, how do we curate these signals? So
so that's literally like design.
yeah, design,
Des-
decoding signal.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So yeah,
Hmm.
it's like that's kind of way I look at it because I know people, I mean, it's a cliche. People say everyone's designer, which is true, but also designer, like I think more important than design is creativity, right? Like you do have that mindset and be open-minded, change. And
Mm,
these are things I feel like we experience every day, especially now after COVID, post-COVID, everything changed dramatically, faster and faster. Now AI, everything that, oh, yeah, how do you keep up with? And I feel
mm,
design is like really ties to decoding signal. Also, like how do you learn how to learn? Yeah, both are
mm.
important to me.
Is that how you got into it when you were a little boy in Taiwan? Were you imagining that you're going to one day be a designer?
My major is actually like industrial design and electrical engineer, and then I really excited and interested in architecture. I actually didn't know industrial design until I entered the college, and I feel like I always loved drawing, so bring tangibility and visualizing the idea is always my superpower. And I feel that really helps me to understand different types of signals, to identify the patterns. And that'll be super interesting. Just to, oh, think about how what happened like to people and why people upset or why people are super exciting. And these are so invisible, so like subtle, but somehow I also feel that's part of the design process.
I love that. I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of pattern and the pattern that connects, so to speak, and noticing patterns and regularities. Was that something you were already doing in some way or other?
I
These
feel
things?
like, yeah, I feel, I don't know, I'm really perceptive. I feel like I just, when I see something, I can intuitively think about some solutions or ideas. And then what I got trained at school or in design consultancy is more about observation skill, design process. And it really helped me to feel like, oh, how do you are you a people person, right? And I feel like that really helps me a lot, like expand my design capability because I feel design is not a hardcore skill or a soft skill, it's a human skill. Is like especially now like we're not like not only celebrate hero designers, we also think about these complicated challenges, right? How do you like climate change, aging, which I'm focused on now recently, and also all this design challenges is complicated, it's systematic. So design or designer is like we tackle solve the challenges collectively. Teamwork is important, and design is no longer like a fancy term, it's a verb. It's a thing that people want to do collaborate as a team. It's a teamwork. It's not just about, oh, celebrate hero designers or leave their signature on the work. Yeah, it's less about that. It's more about create a condition.
This is really fascinating because if we think about design as patterns and if we think about it creatively and we think about it like as important to these challenges that you just brought up, which is basically something that's affecting us on a really deep level, all of us in different ways, wherever we are in the world. But if we think about design as important to that, does it mean that the way we're structuring the products and the environments and everything we're interacting with is somehow contributing to the way that we think about the world itself, would you say?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, sometimes I mean people always looking for optimization, right? We're looking for efficiency, convenience, right? And then like, oh, I'm so glad we have like an autonomous vehicle, so we don't need to drive anymore. We just sit in the car and enjoy the scenery. But the thing about like design is like some people enjoy the driving experiences. Right? Some people want to find their own path. Or another example I'm thinking about is, like a Starbucks, they have like a coffee master. People have an apron and show you how to do coffee. And for me, when I brought the client to do like inspiration trip to see that services, right? The client said, oh, I want to copy that to my company to create the new services. And the behind the scene of that is like, yeah, we want to have this like human touch services, but the difficulty part is like, how do you create incentives? Right? How do you make this like coffee master feel exciting to share their knowledge to the client, the customer every day? Because they're not like us. We walk in as a customer and enjoy the services and walk out. No, they provide the services every day. Can you design the right organization structure or incentive structure to promote people? So they want to become like real master, like different colors, the print or the pins on their badge. Things like that is like it also need to be designed, the whole experiences. It's not about, oh, we look for efficiency, convenience. I think that is really important, but that's more like a fundamental level. Now, same as people talk a lot of this, like most people overuse like generative AI tools. Now, like, yeah, you can give me like thousands of ideas, but I want to know, can you help me to curate my taste, my lifestyle? Is it less about design solutions, more about do you really understand what people needs? Can you change people's quality of life or just throw tons of ideas on them? Yeah.
So for you, it's really about the experience of the people involved in it, not just the consumer, but even the person who's working, the person who's creating it. So you're not making these usual divisions that I often hear between it's all about the customer, for example, or you're thinking of it more holistically almost, it sounds like. Is that normal in design or is that a new approach, a different approach?
No, I mean, you're totally right. Like we talk a lot about like a human-centered design, right? When a human, we easily default think about users. But nowadays, everything's we can view as a system, right? So we think about a system, we have back of house, front desk. So who are the service provider? And these are also human, right? The people provide the services, like you can't overwork. You have to think about the ethical issue, think about the culture, especially now, aging society. How do we erase ageism, right? And we celebrate multi-generational culture. And that implement to design process is like I think human-centered design is pretty important, but now people reflect to think about what do we mean by humanity-centered design. Humanity from humans, like we
Mm.
think about broader like policy, organization structure, culture, right? And now people promote like life-centered design, or even talk about longevity. So it's less about yeah human, but we also think about other aspect because now we're really like a whole, we're interconnected for all different things, not just about human or human center. Otherwise, too ego driven, not empathy driven process.
I think that's true. And most people would say, yeah, of course that's true. There's all these nested levels, and it's all very important now to the challenges you raise, like climate change or our mental health or the way we treat each other and all of this. But it seems like from an outsider view, it seems like like you come to some agency, design agency, and they are supposed to serve you're going to have a project and they need to solve the problems for you, and that usually ends up being about how can this product sell the most or be the most popular, or there's something like that, right? That doesn't seem to fit with what you were just saying, even though I think we're transitioning into a new world relative to all that. But I don't understand how design is doing it. Like, because maybe I'm wrong, but I just think of this old school kind of way of a client goes in, the designer has to kind of make the product the most popular or sellable, or is that wrong? Has that changed a lot, or how does that fit to what you were saying before?
No, this is a wonderful question. I have to say I'm very lucky because my first two job is like work with design continuum and also IDEO. And then you're totally right because I mean, business is like a fundamentally agency need to make money, right? We need to survive. It need to be sustainable. And also another way, my personal experiences at IDEO is like we have the client came to us, and then the business of the agency, at least some office is not good. They want to design. The client came to us. They say, "Oh, I want to design the robot that can accompany kids at home to replace parents." They're very rich. They bring money. We have
Okay.
budget. You
Wow.
guys are expensive. We have budget, and then we can do like 6 month project, even longer. And then we're as a team, the team leader is my mentor, and we don't want to do it.
Ah.
We don't want to, because the reason we don't want to do it, not because they are a great brand. We communicate frequently. We have the workshop together. We know what their needs and requests. But the funny thing is like we don't think the robot can replace parent. And we don't think that's the right thing to do.
Mm.
We can design something very beautifully, very attracting and business successful product on the market, but things like it's just not right. So I was very shocked at the moment, to be honest, because I'm just a junior designer in the team. And I realized, oh wow, this is another higher level thinking about like social impact, right? Like why the kids need to be accompanied by the robot and not
Mm.
just parents. So it's totally like it's really like disrupt my learning about business and design consultancy. And
Mm.
I think that's really beautiful, very huge impact on me. Yeah, another thing I feel like we talk about design and business. I think they both are super critical, like interconnected, because you need both.
You
You
need both what? Design and what's the other?
design and business. You need,
Business. Okay.
yeah, because say now I'm working, very lucky working with MIT H Lab. We talk about design for retirement. We have the great ideas about how we design the people's retirement plan or financial planning or longevity planning. If we don't have this like a sponsor or like a client, how do we scale? Right? We all just close the door, very happy, writing on the post-it notes, very sexy sketches, rendering, wow, and then put in the library in the publication. Nothing we cannot scale. So I feel like both are really critical. And I totally agree with you. I feel like the company agency, they need to make money, but we have to make sure that the money can be invested in the right direction. Yeah. And then sorry, another thing I want to say, we the way we collaborate with the client is also changed, shifted. So in the past, basically like most people think about, including myself, you give me money, I provide output. There's an input, it's a currency, it's a money, it's a trust. Output is a product, services, or experiences. But somehow, because the complexity of the challenges and also everything moving so fast, now it's more like a co-creation process. So we used to like work with one very famous kitchen hood brand in Asia, and then they worked with us for like more than 10 years. Okay, give me like the sexiest, the coolest like kitchen hood. I'm going to launch this year. Give me more like a form and shape. And somehow at the point we say no, we didn't do that. We want to change the whole like collaboration model. Let's like do co-creation together, inspiration together, and then you guys bring these ideas back to the team, talk with engineer, and then come back to us again. Let's do the second round co-creation. So it's more like co-evolving. It's not like a one-time deliverable. It's like multiple times check in to make sure our ideas, our insight can be implemented through their technology, not just like create like beautiful shape and form, and then somehow, oh, we can't do it. So we just make a beautiful rendering and stay that state. No, no, we want to make it real. So we need that co-creation process. Yeah. So that's the second part. I want to add it.
That's really fascinating to me because it kind of upends or changes the way we think of these typical roles of client and provider. I mean, I don't think those roles were ever really very human in a way because it does seem that like what we really want to do is create together. But I guess traditionally there would be certain conflicts about that. So you've worked for these very successful big companies. I want to actually hear how you got into that world and some of the projects you did. But before, I guess when you're already IDEO or one of these big places where everyone wants to work with you, like your boss, then you can say, oh, well, actually, I don't agree with the idea that your child should be with an AI. And so therefore, I can't create this for you. But is that also true at sort of, you know, not lower, that's not the right word, but other kinds of design firms or people who are just starting out or, that don't have a reputation? Are they able to do that or are they still having to just take on the project? I guess what I'm trying to get at is this like what design is now and I just didn't know? Is it co-creation? Or is this like very much for the stars of the business? Because design, like anything else, there's people who are sought after, that the client wants to work with. And that's a completely different relationship than the one I was describing before.
No, this is a great question and also ideas because I have to say, IDEO or design continuum, they have their own reputation in the market on the market, and then at the history. So somehow, even our BD process is all we felt like a design process. We have to know if the client's the right person to see our value, and can really amplify the impact. So this like that's why they have the grain foundation and the history in the past, so they can have that kind of like advantage to say something like that. I do believe that for normal company or like the company last like have history or that foundation, business is also important criteria for them. So yeah, let's still do it, and then I can do it with a relative like cheaper price, but give it like a more competitive like design or solution. And it's always a trade-off because I feel like what I learned from IDEA or another different design consultancy is like the culture is with your design solution. So when you deliver the deliverable, it's not just like one-time experiences. It's like a kind of you bridge, you partner with your client. So that's I feel that's really beautiful because you know each other and the connection it won't be cut off after the project ended. Actually, when the project launched, that's the challenges started. That's the real challenges. Can you really see the performance, the final, the is it like really work? Is it valid? Is it is it feasible? So these are things I feel it's different than can we see like a long-term goal or versus like a short-term, just get a business interest.
That's really well said. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of, for example, some really big advertising or branding or, altogether projects in the past. And I'm not sure it really fits very well with design. Maybe it's more like advertising, but something like the Volkswagen Beetle, and that whole campaign. Or I watched this movie recently with Nike and Jordan. I'm just thinking of all these different examples of design or brand or things that have really kind of influenced us in the way we were talking about it in the beginning of like changing patterns. Let's talk about you. How did you end up in these places that were already so, yeah, I guess well known? Or was that like, it sounds like you just graduated from school and ended up in this environment where you were able to do this co-creation. First of all, is that true? And then maybe we could talk about how in your own experience in a project this actually plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like people's CV, right? Like, oh, these are beautiful name, company, a great school, and but actually every like things on the CV, it's really like hardworking. Because I don't think I'm a smart person. I'm just like work really hard, super hard, and I really enjoy this. And the things like took a double major in industrial design and electrical engineering for like 7 years. My parents thought I have some intellectual problems. Are you have some mental issue or health issue why you cannot just graduate like 7 years? You can get another medical degree. And I said, no, I just really want to study very solid. I want to know the fundamental thing, and I'm not graduate for certificate. I'm graduate for real knowledge. I want to explore. So after that, before I graduate a year ahead, I actually already start searching the jobs. So it's like a year-long preparation. And I'm really lucky because I don't know, I really care about people and culture. So the thing I feel I click with the people I just want to work with them or surrounded by them, and then found the great leaders in Continuum and also in IDEO, so join them. Same as my MIT journey. It's like I apply like so many different labs, and I found my mentor, which is now the director of the Age Lab. It's Joe Coughlin. So he really helped me a lot. I really connect with him, his vision, his idea, and then we start to work some exciting project together. And I feel like really, like you say, like finding pattern, and I would say like more like a finding a pattern, also find the people you can resonate with,
Mhm.
and that pattern can resonate and that can
Mhm.
amplify more impact. Because otherwise it would be like if I really like want to work for to get more money, or I can choose like bigger corporate, right? Because both of design consultancy are pretty small scale compared with other bigger company. But I really think people and culture really shape me. Yeah, still shaping me. So I feel that's really important to me.
That is such a beautiful way to say it, because I really think that's true, that we also have these kind of patterns that we resonate with as we move through our life, and we do sort of set our own trajectory in a way depending on how much we trust ourselves to resonate with that. So, for example, like when your parents were giving you a lot of pressure, I guess, were you still in Taiwan then? Or, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people, a lot of us kind of cave to that, and we do whatever the people around us are telling us we should do or they want from us because it's so much pressure. I mean, to take 7 years and do the double degree, and it sounds like you were actually almost like a perfectionist, or like you needed to get in the rhythm, right? You needed to find that rhythm that you were just discussing. But how did you have the poise and the confidence and the kind of stubbornness or whatever to do that, even though it was not the thing that most people around you were probably saying you should do?
Yeah. Yes, this is such a real, I mean, great question, because not just my parents, my friends, my advisor, some people just don't understand like why you spend so much time on this, and then it's so weird and rare. Like, what the fuck? What are you? It's weird. And then like, I have a friend, my classmate, she graduated within 4 years, got 2 degrees. You can do it very efficient. Like I said, you design for efficient, design for convenience versus design for people. And I always feel like I pretty know what I want and what I need. And I know like beautiful things takes time. Need to be
Mm.
patient. And if everything goes too fast or too successful, that's not the real challenges. Yeah, you have to be have some difficulty. It's very painful. It's so hard. Like think as engineer, you have to do the P set, problem set. You have to like sleep early, wake up early, testing, studying electronics, electromagnetics, or advanced math, calculus,
Mm,
physics. Versus designer, oh, night owl, smoking, the bar. I need some inspiration. So I almost like live in two worlds all together. So
mm,
it's really hybrid world, but I realized that really helped me to design things from outside in to inside out, like a
mm,
mouse. When we have like a use physical mouse, I really inspired by this product because I'm not just design the shape of the mouse. I want to design the electron circuit board. I want to design how it works inside so I can change the shape more flexible,
mm.
more possible way, right? So that's why really inspired me to think, oh, I need to understand this basic electronics or basic like mechanical stuff to help me to design the whole structure of the product. At least I can communicate with engineer. Yeah, so that but that is not like there's no shortcut. I don't think there's a shortcut, including my now I'm doing my PhD is like you just have to immerse yourself in all these challenges. That's the only way to do it. Just put yourself in the data. You get like, oh, dive into it, and then you can say to see the whole picture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with yeah, your work and kind of just what I know of you that it seems like there's a wider picture, right? That you're I talk about holding the paradox, in as a
Mm.
philosopher or kind of beyond dichotomy meaning you embrace the dichotomy, sort of the power of polarity, but opening the space so that it's not oppositional. It's polarity, but it's not oppositional. So I feel that in you and in your work a bit, and it's not easy to do. Like actually, you have these kind of lovely little sayings on your website that you make these little beautiful cards sometimes on social media and stuff. And a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
them,
yeah.
yeah,
Reflection.
but a lot of those are very. You're kind of holding both sides of things, right? Um, there's this wholeness or contextuality, yeah, and I guess that's not an easy thing to kind of learn, but it sounds like you learned it from the start because even with what you're doing right now, your PhD, you didn't have to do that. I mean, you already were working in big firms. You had a big project which I'd like to hear about, like designing a library, I think, in
Yeah.
Shanghai, and there were
Yeah.
many things. We could go into a few, but why would you I mean, this is another one of those moments, right, where most people would look at you and say, "Oh, why are you going to go back and do your PhD after you've already been in the successful world?" And then you have to put yourself in this place again of vulnerability, learning, going through all this effort, time. Everyone wants everything right now, and this takes time. Like you said, you just have to do it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing a lot at you, but is there something in that process of discomfort maybe that's powerful for you?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think most people, including myself, we really want to like looking for a sense of achievement. Like people recognize your work, like social norm. Oh, great salary, you should be a lawyer, doctor. People have some like a stereotype on you, and this is very normal. Like especially in Asia, like stronger. Oh, you have great grades, you should find a stable job. When is the time to get married, having kids? Beautiful life. That's the high standard, golden rules, right? But for me, like I actually feel like everyone love like sense of achievement, but I think it's more important is about a sense of fulfillment. You have to feel fulfilled. And what I mean by that is very simple skill. Like every time I finish reading one book, I feel refreshing. And I really love that moment. Finish the book, you take notes. Oh wow, this is the last pages. And then you sign your name with the stamp and put the date and year. This is wonderful. And this is fulfillment.
Is that
And
what
I
you
feel
do after you read a book?
yeah, that's why
Oh, that's a
every
wonderful
book,
practice.
every book I have, I guess let me see. I think I did the same. Yeah. People have it just like
Oh, I love that. Oh,
yeah,
that's
and
such a
I
good
feel
idea. Gosh,
yeah,
I wish
that's
I'd
really
been doing that my whole life with all my books. Although I
yeah, that's
often read them more than once, but still, that would be cool too to have like double stamps.
yeah, so that like this one is about exploring the research. Yeah, it's like I think yeah, it's like
Oh yeah. That one's on
I
your
post-
website, I think, or
yeah,
you
I
maybe
put
you
the
posted on
date.
LinkedIn or something. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like that really helps me to realize, oh, when I read this and how when I'm going to revisit this. And that is like sense of fulfillment. And then for me, like, oh, why are you back to study PhD? And really, to be honest, for me, like when I back to academia, I really just want to learn the language for academia.
Mm.
So for me, it's not studying, I'm recharging. And I understand how you guys publishing paper and how
Mm.
can we connect like, oh, I know the language of academia, how you use like statistic and describe the data with the subject. And then I'm going to apply that to my work, to the industry work. So I'm more like a bridge. And I feel that's really beautiful. Otherwise, we'll be like, close the door. This is the Kai publication, how many citation I have, and that's beautiful. Or I'm going to draw beautiful, sexy sketches, rendering, prototyping, and there's a gap. And there should
Mm-hmm.
be like, because for me, design is applied science, it's application science, and you need to have both. And then I love my advisor in college. They told us designers need to read a lot because you need to know what happened and how do you connect it with your design skill. And I feel I'm working on that. I kind of recharging, learning statistic, how do you write the abstract clarity, and how do you communicate with people from different background and industry. And we get our hands dirty to really make it real from ideas to implementation.
I see. That's very smart of you in a way. Again, you're sort of taking a few steps back to get a very big picture of this world that is academia or that is design from another perspective, and you're almost like an observer of it all. And it's actually very smart because I know you probably like they want you there because you can teach and they give you money, and in a way, it's like a job, but you also have this time to reflect. And
Yeah.
although PhD can be very stressful because you have so much to learn and reflect on. But yeah, I can see that, and I wonder about those books. Are they, because I'm very interested in the books that you read. We've talked about some of them, and have those been sort of markers in your life? I mean, you put the date and everything. Are they? Do you not only the book itself, but do you see yourself as kind of is fulfillment also knowledge, like learning and developing and connecting in new ways? Is that connected to why you like this reading and so on?
Yeah, I mean I think the most important things I after reading the book is more about synthesizing, right? Like we internalize the knowledge. And then
Mm,
for me, one of the way to internalize it is through like creation, through drawing, through design, or through writing. And then now, because I mean, PhD life is so busy, so one of the easiest ways I writing can synthesize my thoughts, and I think that's really important because when I reading, I always highlight the key sentences or quote to make sure I can understand the context, and then that I will distill writing like a short paragraph to make sure, oh, this is the thing I read. What does it connect to design? I'll always connect to design. Even like we talk about longevity planning, financial planning, I reframe as a design for longevity. So there's still a design element in it. It's not about, oh, because I'm not the expert in finance or psychology. I'm the expert in design. So I want to
mm,
find the connection. And I feel that can really apply to almost different types of books. I can always reflect to think about, oh, what does that mean to design, right? Now I'm apply like a grounded theory, constructed grounded theory. It's from a psychologist or a sociologist, and then it's, oh, how does designer do? We use the post-it notes, and that's the coding, physical coding, and we just didn't know. We already use the grounding theory in our lives. How do you cluster it? How do you constant compare? And we use that all the time. We call like synthesizing, downloading, and ideal. But there is a beautiful connection. And now other people say, oh, let's talk about like boundary objects. Boundary objects like you connect people from different background and then use the physical object or not physical object to talk about something. For example, like you put the map. Oh, I look at the map, I look for the restaurant, and you look for say where's like a front desk information center. And we use the map to open up the conversation. In academia, people say boundary object, and in design world, we say tangible artifacts. And there's a connection, and I feel that's really beautiful, like to connect this together, and somehow that's what I really exciting to do it right now.
Yeah, that's gosh, there's so much in there and it makes me think about the patterns again, right? And the rhythm and finding the almost gestalt or something. But not gestalt always sounds so static and this is like a living process. So I guess I imagine you read something and you're almost learning a new patterning or rhythm. You're bringing everything you already knew to it. So for you, it's going to affect you different than another reader. But then that's kind of wonderful because then you can take that into whatever you're doing, your creation, your writing, or
Mhm.
so on. So it feels like there's a continuity there, a flow, which is almost another way of saying fulfillment in the way
Yeah.
that you were saying, isn't it?
No, I think this is great. I love recall like our previous conversation talk about like a pattern and flow. I really love that because that really made me think about I'm actually now learning and very good at embracing ambiguity.
Mm.
And that's kind of multiple different flows, crazy, big one, huge, like people, oh, crazy problems, you need problem solving. And life is difficult. I'm an international student. It's so many
Mm.
challenges. Every day is like a war to me. Just like, oh, you have credit card fraud. Oh, you forgot to
Mhm.
pay your student dorm rent. Oh, you have health problems. So for me, these are all ambiguity. And how do we embrace that? And then for me, because I work at a design consultancy or some industry experiences, work on a big crazy project like library design, I get used to it like ambiguity part. And for me, these are all part of the pattern. And I have to like know, okay, this is okay to have no answer, but I still want to swim into this and to understand how can I survive and like propel, not just stay there and panic. No, you still have to moving. And I feel exciting for that because that's how challenges comes from. Every day, every single day. Even though I don't even because English is not my first language. So for me, it's another layer of difficulties.
Yeah, no, I think it's good you bringing that up because it's something we don't always think about all these different layers of stress and tension that you can't dissociate from that rhythm and that pattern and that creation process, right? They are all part of us. We kind of think, oh, we just go wear our designer hat or our PhD student hat. But actually, there's all these layers that everyone's dealing with different ones, like you have all these ongoing things that you're kind of trying to deal with too. And it reminds me of something I think you wrote in one of those little snippets, those little, what do you call them? Like they're almost like little,
Like a self-reflection.
yeah,
Like,
they're just like
yeah.
little beautiful quotes, but you say them. But one I think is like something about what isn't design.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also like learning how to unlearn, and there's all these. I'll have to try to find it in a minute. But a lot of it is about self-expression, personal action, and this kind of flow. But how does that how how do you find the poise for that? Is design really life? Is like when you get these alerts, like someone's been you just told me earlier that someone's you have this credit card fraud thing. Someone's like using your credit card for great little stuff. I mean, do you bring your design mindset to these kind of challenges, or when people don't realize that you're speaking English as a second language and they assume, there's all these things that happen, right? When you're a foreigner, I'm a foreigner here, that people just assume things that aren't your references. Um, do you bring this design mindset to those kind of things?
Yeah, exactly. This is what exactly happened yesterday. I was like, oh, it feels so uncomfortable. How can I resolve this? I tried to get a phone call and use their app. It's horrible. Like you wait for so long and it's a AI, it's a chatbot. So they don't
Mm.
know, you didn't feel reassured. So I booked a real
So you
time.
mean like that moment where you realize you've been violated and then you really need to resolve it,
Yeah.
but you can't
And
get in
you
touch with anyone? Yeah.
yeah, I
Oh,
can't. It's
terrible.
like waiting on the phone for like 20 minutes, they all listen to the same music. At least they
Mm.
can change different types of music. It's better, right? Like same music feels sleepy. And then I like finally talk, and I realized it's not a real person; it's a chatbot. And it's
Oh.
really hard. Like the only solution they provide or suggest, like, oh, you just like cancel your car. I mean, that's easy, but I want to figure out what happened. Why my account got penetrated, got my privacy leaking. So I want to know more about just like cancel my car. It's so easy. And I make a appointment with a bank closer to me at MIT, and their location is so popular. And then the manager came to me, oh, how can I help you? And I said, oh, my credit card got a fraud. Can you help me to resolve this? They're too busy. They have no capacity to listen what I want to say. And they said, oh, just use the app to cancel the car. And I'm so angry, like, okay, I'm going to change different location. And then I found that the new location, which is the people are so friendly, listen to me. We sit down in the room. He closed the door. He's a new person. And I told my needs. He helped me to check. In the end, we still make a phone call, but make a phone call together.
Mm.
It's the same result. It just like call them, call the headquarters to cancel. But he helped me to make the phone call. We wait together, we sit together, and that changed the whole experiences. And that's design. That's design. I told them, oh my God, I feel so safe. I feel so supported, empowered, rather than just do it by myself. So these are like a tiny detail, but as a user, as the customer, people feel dramatically different. It's the same result, I still got my car canceled, replaced, but the feelings is so different. How do you design that? Yeah, is it like really aiming for like transactional kind of feedback? Oh, cancel this on the phone. No, you need to people explain to you what happened, and then they will follow up with you. And I really think about this whole night yesterday. This is a beautiful case study.
Yeah, well, I mean, you laugh but it really is. And I think we almost have to laugh because we don't think of things in this way. It's almost hard to talk about with language even that what is really happening there. Even when I was bringing up some of those products, like they're too commercial, but I mean, there's real reason that we connect with something like Apple or something like
Hmm.
Michael Jordan or whatever. And it has to do with sharing some kind of connection or emotional feeling or community. And like that story you just told is so beautiful for two reasons. I mean, one, because it shows how important these things are just for life. Like that is life, right?
Yeah.
Like connecting with people and feeling like you're being seen and trying to understand something together, even if you can't completely understand it, that's a good life. And then the other one, when everyone's too busy and everyone's just like talking to apps and um, trying to get to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, which feels like what we're supposed to be doing, is not a very good life.
Yeah, it's
And
very transactional. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just so different feelings. So I'm very happy I spent like $10 on Uber to find the real. I spend more money and time, but I feel happier. I feel like, oh my God, this is exactly I need. He followed up with me next week, let me know the process, how I got a new car for how long, versus like, oh, everything talk to chatbot. Yeah, I don't need to spend like $10 on the Uber. I can just do it by myself, but I just want to know what happened. And
but the
sometimes you need
quality
that
and
touch. Yeah.
yeah, the quality and the rhythm of your life is better, and that is continuous. That was the second thing I was going to say is the reason I love that story so much is it really speaks to what you were trying to say about design because and also what I was trying to express about your way of doing it because you kind of took a step back again and you shifted the perspective, right? Like what's another way that I could come at this instead of just feeling like you're stuck in that situation and you thought, oh, well, actually, I could go here. And I don't know how to express it, but in my own life, dealing with different problems, I feel like that's always an almost epiphany kind of moment when you're able to switch out of the habitual mindset that you're in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think, oh, when I get older, I feel like, oh, I can shift my perspective. Even like everyone has people you don't want to work with in a company or in organization or in the small group. People have their own circle. But the funny thing is that you can actually learn a lot of things from the people you cannot resonate with. You can look at that, and then I learned so much when at the time when I was in IDEO and design continuum, even now at MIT. Some people it just can't resonate, and this is so true. Like you cannot be a like people person or like a social butterfly all the time. You have your own perspective, your own value, your own belief, and somehow people doesn't resonate with you. How do you deal with that? And that's the piece of art. You can escape. I used to escape or disappear, but now I try to embrace it because that's ambiguity, right? You have to, oh, let's look at different perspective, different shadow to look at the object. So you can find another perspective or landscape from that.
Landscape. I use that word a lot, and again, that's that kind of holding the polarity rather than trying to resolve the polarity,
Yeah.
and realizing there's like not just polarity. There's all kind of other nested, complex systems relative to whatever that position is. Do you remember a time in your life when you recognized that or felt that maybe earlier in your design career when you like what you were talking about with not feeling comfortable in the situation and instead of running away from it, just sitting with it? Do you remember any moments that like where you learned something in your career that way?
Yeah, when I was in college, like most people don't want to work with me because I'm like workaholic. It's too painful. Like, why are you so serious on this? Like, this is just a no critic assignment. And I was like, no, but this is like it's an attitude, So it's so hard. Like nobody want to work with me, like it's too painful. And then it's okay. And I do a lot of individual work, but in the company, everything's about teamwork. So we have the great system. We have like facilitation before the project start, in the middle of the project, and post project. So we know, oh, what are you want things you want to learn, and are you a morning person, night owl, and how can we accompany that, right? And what kind of role you want to play? Are you more like a client management style, or you want to work on your craft, or you want to more like work on the business side? So we have a lot of like communication and like just make sure like everyone on the same page. So a lot of like a communication, I think sometimes over communicate. So making like people know each other better. And every project I work at IDEO is every time with all different designers around the globe. So every project like a new startup, like, oh, startup program. So every time is different. Some people are super hard to work with or super hardcore. And some people are like, oh, very chill, disappear all the time. So how do you self-navigate, and how do you find the anchor of the project? How do you report back to the client with the confidence? So these are things like it just like, oh, it needs to be communicated in different ways. And this is like you have there's no shortcut. You have to learn, understand your pattern, and also receive what other people's pattern looks like. I have a lot of like interesting experiences with a business designer. It's so unique, different world, and we have to work on the same project. It's painful, but also beautiful. The result is it's great. You have different perspective.
Yeah, that's really important to me that what you just said because in the philosophy I do, a lot of it's trying to understand that we all have different paths and trajectories, and we might be in the same landscape, but we've gotten there very differently, and that's why we're approaching the problem differently, and we even
Yeah.
see the landscape differently. Like we're in the same landscape, it's real, but maybe we see very different things there. Maybe what I see you don't even notice, and vice versa. And I think it can be really hard to share that with one another, especially when you're really coming from different paths.
Yeah.
But it can also be very, very creative. Have you had any moments like that in your actual? I'm sure you have them all the time in your studies, but in when you were working first in design and maybe when you were doing some of the projects, I don't know if you want to talk about one in particular, maybe the library or maybe something else where you did notice that opening to these other perspectives gave you something or gave the project something or
Yeah, the library project is a great example. It's like uh redesigned Shanghai Library Innovation Space. And the Shanghai Library is like a face, like a front door for the government, for the Shanghai city. And they want to redesign this. And very lucky is like because I used to taught there, use their space to taught like university students, undergrad kids, and then for 4 years, so they feel like, oh, I can be a great person to leading this project. and it's really like a side project. So I'm the one person team, but one person team designer, and I collaborate with the whole innovation space team. So I have 5 or 6 people. They're from different department. So marketing, communication, or people do the research, or people like a leadership role. So it's like very diverse, even though we all speak in Chinese, but people are so different. The way they look at library, they have different ideas and position. Because I'm asking, what's the value proposition for a Shanghai library? Like, you guys not like a coffee shop, you guys like community hub, but you guys also close early, like 4 o'clock. So how people get really enjoy the time there. You guys provide the class during the weekend. So it's very complicated project. And then it's a 1 year long project. We start from interviewing people who are the loyal customer who really use the library a lot, the parents with the kids, and who are the vendors. So we know there's different voices, and then in their mind, we try to project how they view Shanghai Library. Is it a community center? Is it like the hub for to connect different people, or just like a reading center for undergrads, for graduate students? So pretty amazing research and also design process. And then we got strongly support from the director, from the leadership level, from the Shanghai Library. They want to do it well. So everything's like pushed in the right direction. What I learned from this process is like I'm the only designer, but also I'm not design everything. We co-design together. Like I said, like participatory
Mm,
design process.
yeah.
So I host like 3 design workshop with them. First workshop with all the leadership team. So let's bring Lego, the Play-Doh, all the thing to co-create the thing, the corner of the library. So they have their ideas, and we really like present together, so they feel the ownership of this design process. I have to make sure their voices got heard for the final round. The second round, we invite some participants, some local people who use the library a lot to get their voices. The third round for the final presentation. So the whole design process is like evolving. And I use that design process or workshop to really connect the dots, connect people from different background and voices. Because
Mm.
design is not like, oh, this is a solution, make it happen. No, it's I propose some ideas, they co-create together, and then I do the final polish, final touch, and celebrate together. Otherwise, it's so hard. It's like how's that possible? And most of the design challenge nowadays really like that. It's very complicated and systematic.
Gosh, that's so beautiful, and it reminds me of something else you said maybe when we talked the other day, or I don't know when, but about sort of finding a landing place, or
Hmm.
again, we are at this kind of landscape and space that holds all these different polarities, right? There's something about that, of design being not about a linear solving of something, but opening a space where different people can solve their whatever they need to solve in different ways, right? I
Yeah.
think maybe you kind of expressed that at some point, when we've talked before, and that also reminds me of what you're working on now with like longevity, and a lot of the studies you've been doing where you have all kinds of voices coming in through these questionnaires and so on. I want to like get to that before we close, and in this context that we've been talking about. And also we mentioned before human-centered design, and that, and I want to bring that in because I think there's also like life-centered design. I
Hmm.
know you told me before there's like animal-centered design, maybe there's
Yeah.
even plant-centered design, tree-centered design, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I want to try to connect that too. Like I want to hear about the longevity a bit, but also that also seems like design itself is trying to find this way of accompanying all these perspectives, in the sense that you were just talking about, like the human, the animal, the plant, and they're all not separate. So there's all these nested levels. But first, maybe just what is this longevity? Is because you brought up the financial, there's ageism, there's all these things that maybe people don't know how to fit together. But
Yeah. No, the ideas of design for longevity is like we actually uh during like earlier for like after like industrial revolution, I think we mainly think about design for linearity, design for waste. So everything's
mm,
like, okay, you have ideas, you design, you do production, you manufacture, and you ship and you dispose. So one way, right? And then now people think about design for circularity. circular economics, right? Oh, everything is a circle, like a butterfly chart. So everything's like from the beginning all the way to the end. How can we recycle it and to do it again? So try to optimize the material flow and make sure that we can really use every single material in the design process. And now design for longevity is like we're not just talk about circularity. Also, we shift it because things or material evolving through times. So it depends on like, oh, your personal growth, your life stages, right? And your like health condition. So that's kind of the ideas is like, yeah, we want to think about the ideas like design for longevity is like we try to think about the dimension of time is evolving with your personal growth, is evolving with your relationship, with your patterns, they're all differences. And then somehow the human centered design become much more important because we don't want the product like know you every single of you. You don't have no privacy. We want to make sure you feel safe, you feel like confident to grow, and you have some control, and you know what happened. You can plan and prepare for that. So human-centered design is important because now we talk about people, but also want to talk about bigger issue like our healthcare system, our financial system, our social infrastructure, because now people live longer, but also aiming for better quality of lives. Right now, why you say people retire at age of 65 or 67? Retirement is a make-up concept. So basically, like people want to live with a purpose, with a meaning, with a motivation, and can designer do that, right? And that's part of the important reason why I feel design for longevity is super critical because my parents, for example, my dad retired at age of 52, and he got upset for 3 years because like nobody celebrate his birthday anymore. Your friends and colleagues are different levels, right? And then you retire, okay, you isolated by yourself. Where's our society support, right? And people say longevity planning, finance is one pillar, like a three-leg stool. Finance is one pillar. Another pillar is like family and community, and also like your quality of lives, your like social well-being. And these are all interconnected. And we mainly think about finance part, but actually people, because we're social animals, we need support, we need friends, we need community. When you relocated for aging in place or for other places or close to your kids, the thing you cannot move is your community. Where's your neighbors, right? Yeah, you got a better house, you have better restroom, bigger house, everything's safe, anti-slippery mat, floor, but you can't bring your park with you. Where's your like neighbors? You miss that connection. I know we have like a AR, VR, we have like a Zoom call, but the human touch is missing. And that's why it's super important. And that's part of the thing I'm working on right now. Sorry, I talked too much, too long, but that's the idea.
No, you didn't. That was wonderful. I wish you'd keep going actually, because I think that relates to so much we already brought up. I mean, even, your parents giving you a hard time when you were a student about hurry up and finish and hurry up and have a good career and hurry up and make a lot of money and hurry up and retire and hurry up, and that seems not what we want to design, right? And
Yeah.
what you were just talking about seems more, it's this rhythm. Like, what's the rhythm of your life? What's the meaning, the fulfillment? You brought up that word, purpose. I love that you're bringing all this into, and it also makes me think of what you just said about the finances. We think of, everyone thinks of finances, but as you just kind of showed us, like, that's not disconnected from community, from environment, from all the things we mean by human centered or life centered or whatever. It's weird that we think of it as separate, isn't it? That we
Yeah.
design our financial plan as if it's not related to all this other stuff. It's kind of a weird way of thinking.
Yeah.
Design, do you think of design as also redesigning those weird ways of thinking that we're
No, it's like it needs to be holistic. It's not like, like traditional Chinese medicine and the Western medicine. Like when we talk about this is a comparison. Like I'm thinking about traditional Chinese medicine, it's like they look at the whole relationship and the vibe, the whole, things versus like you're too pointed. Both are important. I think like for design for longevity is like we can't just think about the money side because otherwise you're not happy. What, like, how do you retire with respect, right? People still want greeting. People still want to people celebrate your birthday. My parents bought a new house. I think during the COVID, they all moved to there because they're aging in place. But the thing is like, okay, Dad, where's our neighbor? Where's the park we usually went to, to hang out with your friends? And somehow this makes me realize, oh wow, this is super important. Yeah, you can get any material things new, but the connection, the care, the respect, the motivation, the purpose, these are things people need some help. Yeah, it's not like come directly. It's not like transaction. No, these are it takes time, like do you have the great therapist? Know yourself, right? Do you talk to yourself or like you just feel isolated? And I feel the sad thing about people live in the city is like we thought we have everything. But the funny thing is like your podcast name, the love. How do you feel love? How do you love other people? Everything is like concrete. In the glass boxes, where's the handshake? Where's like the thing we can talk? It's just like somehow I feel this missing part, especially for design for longevity section. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to bring up love, of course, because this is love and philosophy, and all of this has
Yeah.
been very about philosophy. But I do think we've been talking about love a bit too, because that rhythm or that I don't know. How do you see that word in your work, in design, or in life? These aren't separate compartments either, right? It's we don't always talk about it in those terms, but it is kind of what we want in a way out of this.
Yeah, I just feel like lucky and hard work for me to find the right person. So I feel being loved. People need to be in love and then they can love people. They can know how to give back. And I feel being loved by my family, friends, my community members, very supported. And then you realize, oh, even in academia or in industry, you know how to give back to help people who in need. Not just like, oh, very harsh on the deadline, or no, there's something else you can give and talk about it. And then it could be like work as a family, not as an enemy. It's just everything's about collaboration. It's really connected, and I feel like that people need to feel being loved first, and to give love to other people, and that's really important.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. I mean, you're doing all these interesting interviews for your PhD, and I guess like all of this comes out in those too, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're here, because you kind of sent out all these surveys and you've gotten them all back, and to connect this, I mean, you are asking in a way about it's almost like a psychological quality of life kind of survey in a sense, because I guess you see that, right? That people are hungry for community, for love, for or do you, or am I imposing that, projecting that?
No, I think I interviewed like 81 participants and across different ages, and they mainly we focus on people based in Boston, greater Boston area. And then I'm very surprised that this project that because we try to design like very safe environment. It is safe environment, make sure there's no privacy leaking. It's just everything's safe. It's just like you can feel like people struggling all the time. People like fight for their environment, fight for their health, and also they're looking for empowerment. And these are like people are very vulnerable and fragile, and they're looking for not just like finance like support. They're really actually for finance like consultant to reduce their anxiety about
Mm.
the things beyond just money. Money for them is easy, like yeah, it's just like income in and out, but the feeling, the sense of purpose. One participant told me that he has to wake up every day before 8 o'clock to keep the days moving. He's like 63. And another participant, she's in the age of 67. She said, I have to make my calendar full. I have to three things in my day, and I'm reading. So like the purpose is so important. They say, oh,
Mm.
I feel more busier after I retire because so many things I want to do. I want to be feel connected. I want to hang out with the younger generation. I do like 20 volunteers. So these are things that you realize it's more than just money problems. Yeah.
Yeah, because we should say the survey is basically about finances, longevity in terms of that, but then all these other things are part of it. Like you can't separate it. And it reminds me too of because I've also had people in my life who retire and then they sort of feel like who am I? What's my worth? Nobody cares about my birthday kind of stuff, right? And I think that's connected to what we were talking about with the rhythm. Like if you took the time to find what the organic rhythm of your life was, and you've been trying to live that and bring that forth, and of course that's not easy, but it's, you know who you are, right? You've said that a few times. Like, but I think a lot of the older generations, our parents or people today too, young kids, like you just get pushed into these trajectories that don't feel organic for you. You haven't found your own rhythm. You're just taking on what's looks successful and what is safe. It seems safe, right? And then you retire and it's like, what did I just do?
Mm.
Versus someone like what who you just described in that survey who has a lot to do, right? They obviously had a lot of interest. Like it wasn't a cut, maybe their retirement. It was like a opportunity to now explore more and more and more of that rhythm. So
Mm.
that's interesting too, to think about how that relates to all these things we've been talking about, and in terms of, yeah, designing your life.
Yes, yes. No, that's really important. Like, yeah, what people are looking for and what's your purpose of your life? What are you working for yourself or you're working for the company? Most people work for the company, so when you finish your work, you lost yourself. And you have to work yourself first and then work with the company. Like for me, I view MIT as my client. I'm very happy because I work with my client, but also I work for myself. And that's really important. You always have like a sense of fulfillment, not just your identity is not defined by your business card. It's defined by your work, your life experiences, your lifestyle, your taste. Otherwise, I tear up the business card. Tell me your story. No, I cannot tell my story because all the story is confidential. That's the you have to tell your story. I'm curious about you as a person, not you as a product of the company. So that's the thing is very different. And I feel that's why I didn't feel I'm really studying. I really enjoy my different life stages, transforming and shifting. It's hard, it's challenging, but it's still like for me exciting and want to explore more.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And that's not an easy thing, to be okay with who you are and feel like you are important. But actually, it's true of all of us, right? Because we all have unique perspectives and positions. And when we can embrace them and dance with them, then if we do bring forth something, who knows what it is? Maybe it's something that seems small by these other standards, but it's not small, actually, in the big dance of things. So, anyway, I just want to say thanks for what you're doing. And you've said some really beautiful things today and told us some really beautiful stories. So it means a lot. Is there anything I haven't brought up, or that is on your mind, or that you wanted to say, or that came to mind that I didn't let you say earlier before we
No,
go?
no, thanks for having me. I think it's a wonderful. I think it's more than just design. It's like everything connected, and then I feel like human being is it's as a whole. It's not like, oh, sometimes we just too focus on specific part and miss the whole picture. And I mean, things can go wrong, and people are human, right? Well, things go wrong. It's okay to go wrong, and it should be go wrong sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, you can learn. Like with the bank thing, that was not a nice experience to have, but actually it ended up being a beautiful kind of
Yeah.
explication
Listen.
of design,
Yeah,
right? The credit card thing and that we talked about.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's a good example. Well, thank you so much. It's been really great to talk to you. And I brought up those little cards a few times in our talk. So for the listeners, I'll make sure I put those in the show notes or whatever. You'll have to, I think it's on your website so I can
Yeah,
find
it's
it.
a website.
And also some of the books that you've been reading. But thanks a lot. And I wish you lots of good luck with your work.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful talk. Love it. Yeah, cool.